So, hello there, and welcome back to another Night of the Movies podcast. I'm Spartan Knight, and in these podcasts, I love talking all things movies and TV, and whatever I want, whenever I want. And in today's podcast, I'm reviewing Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, the first of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So, let's get into it, shall we? Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl was released in 2003. That's right, it was released 22 years ago this year. If I got my maths correct there, I'm not that good at maths. But anyway, this film was released, I think, 22 years ago this year. I don't know why I doubted myself there. And now it spawned one of Disney's biggest franchises. The first Pirates of the Caribbean film was a great success, mostly critically. There were some critics who were against it, some notable critics, some critics that I follow online, such as Mark Kermode, who has taken a very big dislike into the movie. But for the most part, critics loved this film, and audiences loved it too. It did really well at the box office, and it spawned, how many sequels have there been? 4 sequels. I often forget about the last 2 movies, but it spawned 4 very successful sequels. Yes, even the 5th film, which I think is the worst of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and I'll get onto that when I review it in the forthcoming weeks to months on this channel, even the 5th Pirates of the Caribbean movie was still very successful at the box office. So yes, this film was the beginning of one of Disney's biggest franchises. However, people forget that all the way back in 2003, before this film came out, everyone thought it was going to be terrible. It was a movie based on a theme park ride. And how many times are movies based on theme park rides successful? The answer is almost never. Some people may argue that Jungle Cruise, which came out in 2021, I can't remember now. Some people may argue that Jungle Cruise was a good film based on a theme park ride. But personally, I thought that film was pants. And yeah, when you think about movies based on theme park rides, for the most part, they aren't good. However, this was the exception. A lot of people loved this Pirates of the Caribbean movie. A lot of people still love this Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And for my generation, I kind of think that this was one of our favourite franchises. You know, I still remember being all the way back at primary school, which feels like a whole lifetime ago now, and people were discussing, all the kids in my class and all the kids in the school at that were discussing the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. We discussed a couple of movie franchises, Pirates of the Caribbean, Star Wars, mainly the Star Wars prequels, and I think there was another one, but I can't remember what it was off the top of my head. It wasn't Marvel, because Marvel wasn't really about when I was in primary school, but you get the point I'm making. There were certain movie franchises which we discussed a lot back in school, and not just in primary school, but also in secondary school, and one of those franchises which people kept talking about, which people kept going back to, was the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise. For my generation, I mean, I'm not going to speak for all of us, obviously, but it felt like for my generation, every time I say my generation, I just think of the Who song. Anyway, for my generation, it felt like this franchise was it. And it still feels like this franchise is it. If you listen to a lot of people who love the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise, particularly the first 3 movies, Curse of the Black Pearl, Dead Man's Chest, and At World's End, when you talk to a lot of people who are about my age, they will say they absolutely love the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. A lot of them will say that. And I get it. I remember watching these movies, particularly the first 3 Pirates of the Caribbean movies, so much when I was a kid. I would watch them with my brother. We absolutely loved the battle at the end of the 3rd film. I remember how much we enjoyed watching the 2nd film, and I remember how much we enjoyed watching this film. We'd watch them endlessly. That and the Lord of the Rings trilogy growing up, and of course the Star Wars, the first 6 Star Wars movies. We'd watch those movies time and time again. But the thing is, I started watching them for a long while, and it wasn't until last year that I actually watched the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie for the first time in a good long time, when I properly watched it. I've seen bits of it on TV here and there over the past 10 years, but it wasn't until last year when one of my mates, one of my close mates who I've had on this channel quite a few times in the past, Lewis, you might remember from the Fellowship of the, not the Fellowship, sorry, well, he was in that as well, but the Return of the King first time video thoughts that I did on this channel about a month ago now. I invited him around because he said he hadn't seen the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, and one of my other mates who's a big fan of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies was like, okay, let's watch it together, let's order some food, let's watch the first Pirates of the Caribbean film, and we can show you what all the fuss is about, because he'd heard a lot of great things about it, but he'd never seen any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. So what's the best place to start? At the beginning with the first film, which is still often considered the best Pirates of the Caribbean movie. But the thing is, when I sat down to watch with him last year, I didn't really watch it properly, because when my mates are around, when they're around here at my house, you know, I'm always running around after them and getting them food and getting them stuff and making sure they're okay. So I would say I watched about 75% of the film, but that was like 25% which I missed. And I said to myself, after my sort of 3/4 watched it with my mate last year, I said to myself, okay, I need to sometime within the next year properly watch the film, because what I saw, the 75% of the film that I rewatched, I was kind of amazed by how much I was enjoying it, but I didn't feel like I got the full experience, you know. I didn't feel like I got the full rewatch experience. So, over the past couple of weeks, you would have seen that I wasn't uploading too much on the channel because I wasn't feeling that well for the past couple of weeks. I've been uploading a bit more this week, but since the beginning of September, I haven't felt too well. However, I'm back recording videos now. I'm back recording podcasts. But over those 2 weeks, at the start of September, the start of this month, that I wasn't feeling too well, I decided to rewatch the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie whilst building some Lego. Tried to keep myself busy because I had some Lego to build, so I did that. And I stuck on the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie because I just thought it would be a bit of fun. I wasn't in the mood to watch a film that was going to be challenging. I wasn't really in the mood to watch a new film. I was in the mood to watch a familiar favourite, if you will. And that's what I did. And when I sat down to watch the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie properly for the first time in about 10, 11 years now, I sat down to watch it with the thought, is this still going to hold up? With the question, is this film still going to hold up? The same way I was kind of thinking about Extras, which I did a whole podcast on about a month ago now. The way I watched Extras about a month or so ago, I was like, is Extras still going to hold up? And that's the same way I was watching, that's the same thought process I had watching this Pirates of the Caribbean movie. Watching the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. And here's the thing, this movie still absolutely holds up. Is it a flawless film? No. Is it a bit overlong? For sure. And can you tell that this film was based on a theme park ride? I'd argue you could. But I still think it's a great film. And I think it's a great film because it's a great swashbuckling adventure movie, and I love a good swashbuckling adventure film, and this is a great swashbuckling adventure movie. Plus, yes, you can tell it's based on a theme park ride, but I mean that in the best way possible. You know, a lot of movies which are based on theme park rides, or a lot of movies which feel like a theme park ride, they often feel empty. You know, the thing about a theme park ride is you get the thrill for, like, 5 minutes at the most, really, and then the thrill is over, and you kind of feel empty after riding a theme park ride. I mean, I love going to theme parks, and I love going to theme park rides, but sometimes when you go to a theme park and you ride a theme park ride, you feel empty afterwards. You might even feel a little bit sick. But the thing is, Pirates of the Caribbean, this Pirates of the Caribbean movie in particular, is not empty. It's got a heart, and it's got themes, and it's got things going on in it. It's not just about the pirates of it all. I mean, there's a lot of it which is about that, but it's also about loyalty. It's about how far you will go for love. It's about the importance of the difference between good and evil, and it's about friendship, and it's also kind of about family on top of all that. It's about all of these different things, and it isn't just about, well, the theme park ride. And it could have been. It could have felt empty, but actually, the film has a good heart in there. The film has a good heart in the character of Jack Sparrow, who you root for. I mean, he's a character who, you know, he's such an iconic character now, and there's a reason for that. But the thing is about Jack Sparrow, he's a character who is a loose cannon, you know? He is, he's a loose cannon in that you never really know what he's got up his sleeve. You want to root for him, but then he does something which you don't agree with, but then you realise that was part of his plan overall. You know, the thing about Jack Sparrow is he always outsmarts everybody, and I think that's so clearly shown in his introduction, which is one of the best introductions to any character in a movie, period. I love the introduction to Jack Sparrow, the music, dun 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 dun, bum 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 bum. Such a great piece of music, which I've actually played at the brass band that I play at. Anyway, yeah, that introduction to Jack Sparrow, in that 2-minute introduction where you see him on the boat, then he rides into the harbour and he gets off being a pirate in this harbour. You know, if you've seen the scene, you know exactly what I'm on about. If you haven't seen the scene, what are you doing? Are you living under a rock? Go and watch the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie. I'm surprised you haven't done that already, because it is considered one of those Disney classics. But anyway, in those first 2 minutes, you understand his loyalty, you understand what sort of character he is, you understand how he's often the fool, but he still makes himself look like this cool sort of rock and roll style pirate, and you understand how he gets himself out of all these sticky situations just like that. You know everything you need to know about Jack Sparrow's character. The film beautifully and brilliantly establishes Jack Sparrow's character within its first 2 minutes of being on screen, and it is done so well. And say what you will about Johnny Depp. I know Johnny Depp has got his haters over the past 5 years. I'm not going to comment on the whole Johnny Depp situation, but what I will say is he's a very good actor. I still think that. I still think he's a very good actor. And the thing is, whenever I watch Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow in any of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, but in particular this film, I never feel like I'm watching Jack Sparrow. I never feel like I'm watching Jack Sparrow. I never feel like I'm watching Johnny Depp. It's the point I'm making. I never feel like I'm watching Johnny Depp. I just feel like I'm watching Jack Sparrow. I never see Johnny Depp in that role. Whilst when I watch him in something like Tim Burton's Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, I do kind of see Johnny Depp. And there's a couple of other instances in movies that I can't remember off the top of my head right now. But there's what's that movie he did? The drug movie. I forgot what it was now, but I thought it was quite good. Anyway, yeah. There's some other instances where I watch Johnny Depp in something and I can see Johnny Depp behind the role. You know what I mean? I feel like I'm watching Johnny Depp play a character, but I never feel like that when I watch him as Jack Sparrow. And I love the way he plays the character. I know that performance as Jack Sparrow doesn't work for everybody, particularly Mark Kermode, that critic that I mentioned earlier on this review. I think I mentioned him earlier on this review. Yeah, that critic that I mentioned early on, who is really not a fan of of Johnny Depp as Jack Sparrow, but I personally love him, and I get why he's one of the most iconic characters in movie history. And on a little side note here, though it isn't a side note, it's still tied to what I'm saying, I do hope he comes back in the Pirates franchise, regardless of what has happened with Johnny Depp in the past. I think it'd just be left in the past, and if you don't want to see Johnny Depp in stuff, you don't have to watch him in stuff. I would love to see him back in the Pirates franchise in some way. But also, I want him to be happy as well, because I know that playing Jack Sparrow, he became an alcoholic, and there's all this sad stuff about behind the scenes stuff where, yeah, there's all these quite unfortunate reports about him being drunk on the set of like the 4th Pirates of the Caribbean movie, and I don't want that to be the case with him again. I don't want him to become an alcoholic again if he does play Jack Sparrow. So, you know, health comes first, but I'd still love to see him back as Jack Sparrow someday in another Pirates of the Caribbean movie, even if it's just in a small role, even if it's like, I don't know, Anthony Hopkins in The Mask of Zorro, something like that, you know, a role where maybe he's supporting the next Jack Sparrow. I don't know, something like that. I'm just coming up with random ideas off the top of my head. But the reason I want to see him back so much, to tie it back onto what I was saying before, is because he is such a brilliant character, and he's a character that you root for in this film, and he's funny as well. The great thing about Jack Sparrow is he's funny, and that makes you really enjoy watching his character. There's quite a lot of times when you watch main characters, you watch protagonists in movies, and you don't really feel like you're rooting for them so much because they're not funny enough. But the thing is, Jack Sparrow is funny, and that's another reason that you root for him and you want him to succeed. Plus, the supporting characters are all a joy to watch in my opinion too. Orlando Bloom isn't the best actor. I've met Orlando Bloom. I say I met him, I was like 30 seconds at the most. I think, yeah, it was about 30 seconds at the most of my meeting with him. But, yeah, I met Orlando Bloom, and I think he's wonderful in the Lord of the Rings movies and in the Hobbit movies, and I think he is good in this film, but I also think he's the weakest performance. I never really thought Orlando Bloom was one of the best actors, but I do like him in this film, and I believe him in the role. I never feel like I'm really watching Orlando Bloom when I watch him in this film, and I think that's a big plus. Same with Keira Knightley. Keira Knightley, this is kind of the film that really puts her on the spot. I mean, I think she had this come out in the same year she had Love Actually come out, so what a year for her, hey? But, yeah, I think she's really good in the film. And what I really like about the characters of Will Turner and Elizabeth Swann, you know, Orlando Bloom and Keira Knightley's characters, is as soon as you meet them, you know what sort of characters they are. Like, as soon as you meet Will Turner, he's messing with the little the light lamp thing in the posh house, you know, and he accidentally breaks it and he just puts it in the bin. And you know exactly what sort of character he is, just like that. Same with Elizabeth Swann, when, I don't know if it's just when you meet her, but she's put on the corset and she feels the corset is too tight, and just like that, you understand what sort of character she is. She doesn't want to be this person that she's being brought up to be. She wants to be free, and yet she feels so tied up. And I love those character introductions, and I also love the character Barbosa. Who doesn't love the character Barbosa? Jeffrey Rush as Barbosa is one of the best performances in all of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. Even the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, which I don't like, and I'll talk about them more as I review these movies over the next couple of weeks to months on this channel. But even the Pirates of the Caribbean movies that I don't like, I always think he's good in them. And I love how he plays the villain in this film. The way he delivers everything, you totally buy him as a pirate, and yeah, I love Barbosa as a villain. I mean, I love Davy Jones as a villain as well. I do think Davy Jones is a slightly better villain than Barbosa in the second two Pirates movies, but I do still think Barbosa is probably the best villain we could have started with in the Pirates franchise. And I love how he has this sort of frenemy relationship with Jack Sparrow as the franchise goes on as well. So yeah, I enjoy all the main characters. I also enjoy all the supporting characters. And I do still think that visually this film has held up. Sure, you can tell some of the CGI is early naughty CGI. You know, it's early 2000s CGI. It's CGI where it's like, okay, it isn't quite up to snuff, like when you see Barbosa's crew's skeletons. It's like, okay, you can kind of tell that it doesn't look as realistic as, say, Davy Jones in the second two Pirates movies, but I still think the CGI works for the most part, and I do think this is a really well shot film. And I love the production design, the set pieces. It feels like a blockbuster, and in all the ways you want it to be. It feels like a blockbuster in every sense of the word. I love when you get a big budget blockbuster, like say this movie, and it feels like a blockbuster, you know what I mean? I love when you can see the money on screen, and it feels like so much money was poured into this film, and you can see it on screen, and I mean that in the best way possible. I love the production design, the costume design. It's so convincing in my opinion, to the point that when I was a kid, I used to think that, the Pirates of the Caribbean movies were true stories. Of course, then I grew a brain, because, you get the Kraken in the second film, you get a dead army in this one. Obviously, it's not based on a true story, but because it was so believable for me when I was younger, I did believe that this was all based on a true story. I believe that Jack Sparrow was a real-life person, which, again, doesn't make any sense when you get to the sequels, but still, it doesn't make any sense when you get to the third act of this film. But, you get the point I'm making. And I just love how everything is realised. I love how Gore Verbinski directs this film, because Gore Verbinski's got this sort of Spielbergian touch in his directing. It's not as good as Spielberg, but the thing is, when I was watching this with my mate Lewis for the first time last year, he didn't know who directed it, and he turned to me about half an hour into the film and he said, "It's directed by Spielberg." And I was like, no, but I can see why you'd think that, because the way Gore Verbinski moves the camera, the way he does these long sort of tracking shots when there's action sequence going on, and the way he's got this visual wit about him. That's the thing about Spielberg when you look at his, his family movies, his adventure movies, whether it's Indiana Jones, E.T., you could even argue Jaws. When you look at his more family-targeted films, he's got this visual wit about his directing. He's got this excitement is directing, the way he moves the camera. It's almost like he's excited about the action sequence along with the audience. He wants the audience to be excited about the action sequence in the way he's directing it. And you get the same with Gore Verbinski when you get to this film. I love the way Gore Verbinski directs this film, moves the camera and keeps everything moving. Again, that's something Spielberg does in all of his family targeted films. He's always moving. He never has a dull moment, and this movie never has a dull moment. It has a Spielbergian touch about it, and of course also has a Jerry Bruckheimer touch about it, because Jerry Bruckheimer is producing this film, and he produced such movies as the Top Gun films. He produced the Bad Boys movies. He's produced Con Air. I mean, that's a wild movie. But yeah, he's produced all these movies which have this Jerry Bruckheimer feel to them. You know when you're watching a Jerry Bruckheimer produced movie. There's a sort of urgency to the film. There's a sort of energy to the movie. And I think you get that with this Pirates of the Caribbean movie. And yeah, I watch this film and I can't help but get swept up by it. I can't help but smile with it. I can't help but laugh with it. And I can't help but just have a great time. Again, it's not a perfect movie. I mean, can you name a perfect movie that is, completely perfect, no holes, no flaws in it whatsoever? Chances are you probably can't. And, the thing is, the first Pirates of the Caribbean movie has some flaws. Has quite a few flaws, actually, when you look at it. But the thing is, I can get past all the flaws because the movie moves at such a rip-roaring pace that I just can't help but have fun watching it. And I love, as I've already said, a great swashbuckling adventure movie. I think I've loved swashbuckling adventure movies since I watched the Indiana Jones films for the first time. And I think my love of the Indiana Jones movies also helped my love of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies. At least some of the Pirates of the Caribbean movies, mainly just this one. This is the only Pirates of the Caribbean movie I love. I like certain others, and I'll get onto that as I review these films in the next couple of weeks to months on this channel. But I think my love of this movie was enhanced because of my love of the Indiana Jones movies. I do feel that these films take inspiration off the Indiana Jones films in the way they are directed, in the way that they're constantly moving forward, in the way that you get this sort of endless whip-roaring energy going throughout the film. It never stops, this movie. There's always something. And it's always catching you off guard as well. It's always surprising you. I can't see how you wouldn't get to the end of this movie and not have a huge grin on your face. Not feel like you just watched one heck of a fun film. And that may sound like faint praise. Sometimes people say, oh, it's a fun movie, and that's kind of the only praise they'll give it. But the thing is, I mean this is a properly fun film. It's an adventure film in the way you want it to be. It's got great world building, great set pieces, exciting action sequences, sword fighting, which I don't know how long it took them to choreograph some of that sword fighting, but it still looks great, with so many moments when you just can't help but smile and be caught up in the action and get along with the comedy. And the film is still funny. The jokes still hold up, and with a lead performance by Johnny Depp, which I don't care what anybody says, I still think is brilliant. Just having this character, having this sort of rock and roll pirate as your lead is just works perfectly, and having all these supporting characters, not only like Will Turner, Elizabeth Swann, and Barbosa, but also what's his name, Cornet? It's not Cornet, is it? What's his name? Oh, I forgot his name off the top of my head right now. It's bugging me. I'm gonna have to look it up. Bear with me a sec. Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Look up the cast. James Norrington, I don't know where I was going before, but James Norrington, I think he's a great character. I really enjoy the character, and I love how he's developed in the next couple of movies. You also have Gibbs in there, and the character played by Mackenzie Cook, and the other one who he's best mate with, who they got the dog, and they're constantly making mistakes. I love those two characters. I also enjoy Zoe Saldana in this film. I forgot that Zoe Saldana was in this movie until I rewatched it last week, or until I rewatched it 2 weeks ago, should I say. I forgot she was in this film, and I kind of wish she was in the sequels. I know she said some. I know she did. She said she didn't have the best time making the first film, but still, I think she's great in it. I love all the characters the point I'm making, and I think it's so enjoyable, you know, and I miss when movies were just this enjoyable, were just this rip-roaring, and just this exciting, you know? And I'm not one of those people who say, oh, movies nowadays aren't as good as they used to be. No, I'm not one of those people at all. I think there are plenty of amazing movies that come out nowadays, and if you don't believe me, you're just not looking in the right places. You know, if you look at independent cinema, there's loads of great movies there. If you look at blockbuster cinema, you will occasionally find some pretty amazing movies as well. But I miss when movies were just this confident, you know? I don't know if you know what I mean. I miss when the movies just moved at this pace and felt like a proper blockbuster that never stopped being entertaining. I don't feel we've had that with a blockbuster over the past couple of years. Again, there's been plenty of blockbusters I've absolutely loved. My favourite film of last year was a blockbuster in Wicked, but you know, I want there to be another swashbuckling adventure movie like this to come out nowadays, and I'm missing that because I love a great swashbuckling adventure movie, and of course, this is a great one. And the film is about 2 hours and 25 minutes as well, and it just flies by. Yeah, I absolutely love Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. Does it have its flaws? For sure. Does it feel like a theme park ride brought to life? For sure. But you know what? It's got a good story, it's got a good heart, and it's got good characters. And on top of all that, it's still so exciting to watch, and a great family movie. There's a bit in there for the entire family to watch still and enjoy with this film, regardless of what age you are at. So yes, I love Pirates of the Caribbean: The Curse of the Black Pearl. And that is why I'm going to say that it's I'm going to give it you know what, just for pure enjoyment, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10. I wasn't planning to give it a 9 out of 10, I was planning to give it an 8.5 out of 10. But just for pure enjoyment, I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10, because it is, I mean, again, it's not without flaws. I know that, and it's a bit overlong. You do get to the final 10-15 minutes of the film, and you're thinking, okay, well, we're going ahead with another action sequence, but at the same time, it leaves you with such a grin and such a feeling of excitement that I don't think many other movies do. And I think that's also what makes it one of the best Disney movies. And one last thing is, I think what else makes it one of the best Disney movies is the musical score. How could I almost forget talking about the musical score? Whenever I talk about a movie, I try to talk about the musical score, even if it's just very briefly. And I love the musical score by Klaus Badelt. I think that's how I pronounce his name. Apologies if it's not. By Klaus Badelt, isn't it? Klaus Badelt for this film. Klaus Badelt is one of Hans Zimmer's students. Hans Zimmer composed the score to 3 out of the 5 Pirates of the Caribbean movies. He did the scores to 2, 3, and 4. Yeah, Pirates of the Caribbean 2, 3, and 4. But he didn't do the score to this film. And so what happened was, I think I've heard this, the filmmakers behind this movie originally hired a different composer, but they didn't like what that first composer did at all. So they came to Hans Zimmer, they went to Hans Zimmer and said, can you compose a score to this film? And he was working on something else. So Hans Zimmer went to one of his students, Klaus Badelt, who did the score to this film, and Klaus Badelt only had a month, according to Google, to write and compose the score to this film, which is now an impossible. I cannot believe how difficult that would have been. And I know there's been some dispute over who actually came up with the main Pirates of the Caribbean theme. You know, was it Hans Zimmer? Was it Klaus Badelt? there's been that dispute there, and you could argue it's Hans Zimmer because it sounds quite similar to the score to Gladiator, or it sounds quite similar to one of the themes from Gladiator, which Hans Zimmer did the score to. But the thing is, the score itself, Hans Zimmer did not do. Hans Zimmer may have come up with some of the main themes from this film, but Klaus Badell did the score. He brought the score to life. And I do not think that without this film, without the score story, this film would have turned out as well as it did. But the fact remains, and it is a fact, I don't care what anybody says, it is a fact, the scores of this film, regardless whether you love the film or not, the scores of this film is sensational. It just perfectly captures this movie. The energy of this film, the feeling that you have watching this movie when you see all these different scenes going on, the score captures everything on point. I think Klaus Badell did a really great job bringing this film to life in the score. And so yeah, I love the score to this film, and I can't believe I almost forgot to mention it, but I didn't, so it counts. I put it a bit later on in this review, but I still put it in there, so I still put it in here, so it counts. Anyway, going back on to what I was saying before, I love Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl. It still holds up, in my opinion. It's still a great family adventure, swashbuckling adventure that, and it's got a rip-roaring score to go along with a rip-roaring adventure film that never stops. It moves at a breakneck pace, and it's got this Spielbergian touch about it too. And yeah, it feels like a theme park ride movie, but I mean that in the best way possible. This is easily the best theme park ride movie I've seen, and I still think that today, you know? I love this movie, and I can understand why it stood the test of time for a lot of people. And I understand why it spawned 4 more sequels. Granted, some of the sequels weren't as good as others, but this film, regardless of what you may think of the rest of the franchise, is still so great and stands on its own 2 feet as well. Yeah. In my opinion, Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl still holds up for all the reasons I've said in this podcast today, and that's why I'm going to say once more that this is such an enjoyable movie, and that's why I'm going to say that it's a 9 out of 10 from me. Anyway guys, that's it for today's podcast. If you have seen Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, I'll be surprised if you hadn't and you watched up to this point in the review. But if you have seen Pirates of the Caribbean, The Curse of the Black Pearl, please let me know your thoughts on it in the comment section below. And as always, thank you for watching or listening to this podcast. And if you haven't yet, please click down below and like and subscribe on this video. And look forward to many more videos and many more podcasts coming very soon on this channel. As I've already said, thank you so much for watching or listening to this podcast, and I will see you guys again soon. But bye for now. Bye.